G'day mate and welcome to Capital Ministry with me, Chitty. With so many island tours under my belt, I thought it was about time that, well, I toured my own island. I thought it was about time we had a look at the crater, and of course, this is what the crater looks like after you, well, launch a rocket. Launch a rocket at the same time you're accidentally flooding the map. Yeah, thank you KE for proving that it can be done. You can both flood a map and launch a rocket at the same time. But before we get into the island tour, I have a very simple question I'd just like to ask, and that is, of course, can I borrow a like? I just like to borrow a like. I like to borrow a like early in the video. If you're not happy with the video, you didn't enjoy the video, I tell you what, you can continue watching this video where we tour the underwater version of the map. Now, if we roll back in time just a little bit, we'll come back to, the island pre-flooding, and, of course, this should be the island I end up touring, because, the other islands are a little bit more boring. A little bit less going on. So, let's start off with, of course, the number one culprit. The number one culprit of all the horrible things, that is Mr. KE, who was sitting up here waiting to dig literally one tile. One tile was always holding back the water from, the rest of the map. So, let's start the docks, actually. I think the docks should be a good spot to start because I have Mr. Shippy, who hasn't quite left yet at this point of the save with his small amount of gold that he was going to run away with. We also have, a uranium input, which is still coming from one of the world maps. That one? That world uranium mine. This one, yeah, we haven't touched this one, really. 87%. 74%. We've used a little bit of uranium out of the world map, but not a lot. Of course, we have our slag for sale water contract right here, which seems to be backing up. I'm guessing a lot of production happened the last couple of episodes, which vastly increased the amount of, slag we're outputting. Of course, right beside that, we have our crude oil contract for vehicle parts. This was set up much earlier in the series. Of course, if you're watching this video out of the blue and you're trying to question what the hell's going on, of course, the full link to the playlist is down in the description below, also in the first pinned comment. By all means, check that out. That'll give you a link to, everything that's happened in this series. It's been a long series with a, spectacular ending. Over here, we have the wood for rubber contract. I gotta say, of all the different contracts for rubber, not that there's that many choices, all the different contracts for wood. There we go. I've got to say, I definitely prefer the rubber over the household goods. Rubber, don't forget, you have, naphtha or diesel. It's going to cost you one of these two. Also sulfur. You're going to go through a decent amount of sulfur, so you're probably going to have to enable the world sulfur mine if you wish to do this particular contract. Sulfur is actually fairly cheap to mine, in saying that you don't get too much, so that's something you need to also keep in mind as well. If you do want to have a lot of wood and you don't want to have wood harvesters going out and getting it for you, you're probably better off with the household appliances. One, because they're all things that you can get from other contracts should you need to. Of course, then we have the wonderful oil refinery, which is running, of course, off a nuclear reactor. Because how else would you power an oil refinery? All the steam comes from the nuclear reactor, all the water cycles back into the nuclear reactor, and then excess water gets thrown out of the system because, we have a number of sour water strippers here producing a whole bunch of extra water. This is, of course, my wonderful blueprint that is available in my Discord server. Again, links are down in the description if you want to grab yourself a copy of the blueprint, which has, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so it's a double size oil refinery. Normal size is about four of these modules. This has been doubled out to 8. You can always customize the oil blueprint because it's all modular and increase it out to double size. By the same token, there is a full copy of the double size blueprint that should work. I'm pretty sure it works. Nobody's complained it doesn't work, so it probably works as a single blueprint. Also all across the back is all the cracking with options. So we have heavy for naphtha. The heavy doesn't get turned directly into diesel because we have an option after converting the heavy to naphtha. You can then take the naphtha and convert it into diesel, or you can take the naphtha and convert it into fuel gas, if you prefer fuel gas. So you have a couple of options there. As for fuel gas, it gets converted primarily into hydrogen, and then whatever's left over gets converted into diesel. We also have sour water stripping. This has been customized slightly to increase its capacity to make sure that we can keep up with the sour water to slag contract. Also, it has fertilizer 1 on site along with fertilizer 2, along with extra sulfur input. So if you have scrubbing based all around the map and you need somewhere to dump that sulfur, it'll just come into this bucket and be processed either into fertilizer or into slag here at the end. Finally, we have some scrubbing that was applied to the oil refinery, just so we could scrub, you know, some of the byproducts that we're making. Not so much anymore. There were a couple of byproducts. The big things that we're grabbing from here is any carbon dioxide we're converting into graphite. Also, the excess from both of these. And looks like the chimney's running currently, so obviously I need more scrubbing. Also, this scrubbing is attached to, well, this little micro factory up here, which is running some basics for us. Okay, continuing around the map, we have, well, many of these chemical plants making ourselves some graphite, plus we have a backup graphite supply. This is coming from, well, the more, I was going to say the more efficient recipe, the faster recipe, the one where we turn some coal and some chlorine into graphite. This is what I normally do for a lot of maps for a backup. Hoping that I can get most of it from, well, scrubbing the CO2, because I'd prefer not to vent the CO2. I'd prefer to keep the air pollution as low as possible. But you definitely need normally a couple of these as a backup. And then, of course, we have the nuclear reactor, which is primarily sending the steam into the oil refinery. If it can't, it'll actually run it into these particular high pressure turbines, and if it can't go there, it will end up running into the cooling tower to, well, just be recycled back around. Of course, we have a little wooding area, well, a little forestry area. This has been pretty much most of what we've needed to keep the island running. We're not using a whole lot of wood on this particular map, so this has been keeping things running terribly well. Over here, of course, we have food, also a fertilizer 2 build, I guess you could call it. Because we have tofu being made right here, which requires both sulfur and limestone, it seemed like a good spot to turn our fertilizer 1 to fertilizer 2, because we had 2 of the 3 ingredients here. I just need to bring the fertilizer 1 here. The fertilizer 1's on the other side of the map, but it runs to pipe, so we'll get to that shortly. Here we have, well, our sushi belts. Our sushi belts with all our food coming in either on flat belts or on U-shaped belts. They pop into, well, the wonderful food build, at which point they get filtered off. So we have obviously our soybeans being filtered off, put in a giant bucket, and whatever can't be used right here gets sent well, up to the end to be reprocessed in animal feed. So we have obviously our soybeans and tofu. Excess soybeans can also get turned into cooking oil. So if this bucket ever fills up, it will send the excess, there we go, into this belt and then into this balancer, and then join into this balancer with it being a secondary input to make sure we get rid of all the canola first to make cooking oil. Then of course I have sugar cane into sugar. I keep saying sugar into sugar. It's really not sugar into sugar. So we have sugar cane right here. Sugar cane and also corn mash can be converted into ethanol. And as you can see, I have a priority system. So I have both the corn into corn mash being plugged directly in a 1-to-1 into the fermentation tank, and also the sugar in as the primary recipe. So if we have sugar available, we'll make ethanol. If we don't have sugar available, we'll use the corn mash instead to make sure we're topped up on ethanol at all times. Should also mention sugar also gets pulled off here and gets sent on further for cake. And I should also mention that, again, blueprints wise, all these blueprints are on my Discord server. You'll normally find them in sets of 3. So, you know, 3 of tofu and 3 of cooking oil and 3 of sugar, and I think these are in a singular because they're fairly large, because you need 1 air separator per 3 fermentation tanks. I think this is 1 solid unit. Anyway, we're going to continue down the list. Of course, we have the food processors doing our snackaroos. Very, very important we have our snackaroos. And of course, in this case, I've fed in both the potato and the corn on 2 separate belts. I could have them on 1 merged belt, but realistically, I prefer to use the corn over the potato because it's the similar amount of food, but a lot more snacks at the end. Also, less biomass overall when you start talking about ratios, so I'd prefer to use the corn recipe. Next after that, we have flour. Flour is a little bit special because it goes technically straight through, but also has the option to go to the right, because we're going to need flour for a couple of other byproducts, one of them being cake, the other one being, of course, our sausages. We have right in front of our bakeries, the baking unit, making the actual bread itself. Then, of course, we have cake. Then, of course, we have our sausages. And then we have our food processors doing the meat trimmings, along with a second row doing the meat and with the byproduct meat trimmings. Now, a choice I made, and it's a question that came up in the comment section at the time, is why do I have two separate builds for this particular build? I could have these doing both recipes at the same time, and as long as they're prioritized correctly, it should work. And I don't disagree, it should work, but I've found some edge cases where sometimes it backs up, and it ended up running this recipe because it can't really get rid of the meat trimmings for some reason, which doesn't mean I really particularly want more meat trimmings in the actual building. So I decided for this particular Let's Play to run it as two separate buildings. I will show a different way to do it in the future. Okay, and then of course we have the chicken sheds. I have far too many chicken sheds. I probably could have knocked off 4 of these without any issue. But well, once you have chickens, you get a whole lot of meat trimmings. You can turn a whole lot of meat trimmings very slowly into a whole lot of fuel gas and a whole lot of compost. That can be a giant advantage in the future. All depends on your playstyle. As for the aromatherapy digesters, I'm going to call them aromatherapy digesters because the aromatherapy that comes out of these digesters would smell wonderful. I don't care what you say. These are for burning off the excess. So any excess food that we don't need is going to, well, after it's been filtered out of the system, gets dumped back onto these two belts and passed along. But there are a couple of foods that can't be turned into animal feed. So those particular foods get processed in the aromatherapy digester, which is prioritized to do the poppy first, plus the vegetables, plus the fruit. The poppy and the meat trimmings are both on a U-shaped belt, and the vegetables and the fruit are on the flat belt. So I want to make sure the vegetables and the fruit have a higher priority than the meat trimmings, and I also want to make sure the poppy has a higher priority as well, because they have this wonderful balance here. This wonderful balance here is going to say, hey, if there is poppy here, I need to get rid of it. I need to get rid of it. I can't let this system back up, and this is probably one of the biggest catches with having a sushi belt for your food. You can't ever let it back up. None of these processes can ever back up. You know, I can't have too much ethanol. I can't have too much cooking oil. A significant amount of thought has to go into balancing the whole system. So these guys are designed to make sure we don't back up on poppy. We also don't back up on veggies or fruit, and they'll convert the whole lot into fuel gas and compost. I do have the bonus that they're going to convert any extra meat trimmings also into fuel gas and compost at the same time. And, well, I have a few meat trimmings. In fact, I have enough to run another, I don't know, dozen of the aromatherapy digesters. Okay, right here at the end, we're going to pull off biomass and animal feed off our wonderful sushi belts. Biomass we're going to separate out because that's going to get burnt. I could do other things with it, but I'm just going to burn it. Animal feed is going to feed into, well, our animal feed boxes, so we have spare food for the chickens. And any excess animal feed will pop around here. And this is one of the processes where I burn off the excess. So we have a box for biomass, a separate box for animal feed. Biomass is going to get burnt over here, along with possibly animal feed. And these two are also set up to burn off animal feed. On top of that, I have 3 of these guys now to burn off either fuel gas or ethanol. So we have the fuel gas coming from the aromatherapy digesters, and the ethanol is excess from our ethanol system. So ethanol and cooking oil are 2 things that you very, very careful. You can't let them back up. So cooking oil pumps into a tank. Once the tank's full, the excess cooking oil comes over here, and it's going to go into, well, this lovely chemical plant which will convert ethanol and cooking oil into diesel. So this has a direct feed off our giant ethanol fluid tank, which definitely is made sure it's full at all times. We have a priority, well, actually we don't have a priority, I broke it. Cool, I have a priority in to make sure that is always full. It's all right, never affected us. And then we can make sure that any excess cooking oil gets going to convert into diesel. Diesel, I'm just literally running them into a couple of diesel generators. I just need it burnt off. I need it to go away. As for any excess ethanol, so if I still have ethanol after this tank is full, we're going to run the extra ethanol all the way around on the outside and bring it over here. At the same time, I should mention that, well, the exhaust that's down here, the exhaust from the diesel generators plus this CO2 from the gas boilers all pops back up to, well, these guys up here, either here for exhaust or here for CO2. I probably at the point I should have expanded this system. If we look at this, yeah, this has 27 out of 27 out of 600 in it, so it has had some excess come in here. And by the same token, I probably should have put it in a tank. I should have put it in a tank so I could store up some excess, just to make sure that they don't burn off. And probably put a marker on the tank, you know, notify me if you're full. Yeah, probably should have done that. Never got around to it. All right. Of course, all our food comes out the front and then disappears down the town. We'll get to the town in just 1 second. And as for all the excess steam I'm producing from these things, well, they just go into a bunch of high-pressure turbines. Yeah. And we have 1, 2, 3 of these guys running. The 4th one's not running, which means, in theory, no, it won't be the first one. It'll be that one, and that one are running, which should give us 3 of these generators running at least. It's on average, so we'll have about 66% power or electricity from these generators until the steam drops off on that one. And then we'll drop down to 50% power, yeah, 48%. There is a little bit of an efficiency loss, but it is what it is. And then, of course, I have a situation because I only have ability to burn off 1, 2, 3, 4 lots of steam power, and I have, well, 6 here. I do have a thermal storage to sort of balance out the difference. So we can pump extra steam in here and then convert it back. It is a very lossy process. I really don't recommend thermal storage no matter what you do, but in this particular circumstance, it sort of works. By the way, this only has an alert if notify me if empty. In the future, in update 2, because I mentioned it to the devs, you'll probably have an alert if it's, well, full as well. Because this is a situation where I actually want to know if it's full, not if it's empty. I don't care if it's empty. It's meant to be empty. But if it's full, I need to burn off the steam more efficiently. Yeah, okay. One other thing we need to look at is, well, a couple of little bits of bonus production. So we have right here I have vehicle parts number 2. These are going up to the boat to get exchanged for oil. Right behind them is vehicle parts number 1, which of course requires iron, mechanical parts, and electronics. We're still making electronics on site, right at the top of the crater, with the very, very old blast furnace. Like, this never got an upgrade. This is one of the first ones. Actually, I think this is the first copper smelter was built. It stayed here right since the start of the game. We're making electronics, plus we're making mechanical parts. We have upgraded that to steel. Plus we're bringing in iron to do the vehicle parts. Then we're doing vehicle parts 2. We have our steel production over here, which did finally get upgraded to the blast furnace Mark II, mainly because I needed excess steel. Because we're also, well, over here, you're producing our glass to make our vehicle parts 2. But we're also stealing some of the steel. We're stealing steel, and we're also stealing glass from here and taking them around the map. Yep, around the map, up to do vehicle parts number 3 as well, I should mention. Yeah, we're doing vehicle parts number 2 here for, again, the vehicles depot. Again, this is an upgradable blueprint. Look, there's going to be a number of blueprints. Number of blueprints you can find over on Discord if you want to check them out. One I do want to mention is the vehicle depot. There's a vehicle depot Mark 0. Well, Mark 1, because technically you don't have blueprints at that stage. Then there's the vehicle depot Mark 2, and then there's a vehicle depot Mark 3, where you can literally, well, build one into the second, into the third. You can't upgrade them, so to speak, because a vehicle depot Mark 1 upgrades into a Mark 2, and the Mark 3, you need to rip down the Mark 2 and build it again because, well, that building doesn't upgrade because it has an entirely different footprint. But we are stealing steel and glass from our little manufacturing at the top, which actually coming over here and doing medical. So right here I have our disinfectant from our ethanol and our plastic. Plastic's being made on site right here because it just needs ethanol, which we have, also chlorine. And we're making our disinfectant right here to make our, well, to also make sharp things, which is plastic and steel. Again, plastic, we're importing the steel from that build over there to make medical 1. Medical 2 needs antibiotics, which are right here. They require sugar, which is why it's part of the food build. Also ammonia. We're making our own ammonia on site with hydrogen and nitrogen. And to get the hydrogen, we're literally just cracking water. We're cracking water and electrolyzer to make the hydrogen because it's just easier. It's not efficient. It uses a whole bunch of power, but frankly, I don't care because it's convenient and it's easy. This is, of course, going to make our medical 2. To make our medical 3, well, I need to get our anesthetics and morphine. Morphine anesthetics come from steel, which we already had from a previous part of this build. The ammonia, which we've already built. Plus, we need the hydrogen fluoride. Hydrogen fluoride requires stone. Rock, acid, and I thought it was the hydrogen fluoride and the slag. So I have rock import, slag output. Also, I need to make morphine. Morphine comes from poppy. as this is our food build, seems somewhere logic to put the poppy and then mix it with some acid, which again comes from the glass making over here. Also copper, it's all one giant acid pipe. And mix it with the glass to give us the morphine, which then makes our medical 3. So all the medicals also provided right here at the top with our food processing. There is a farm or two, or 3 or 4. Yeah, there's 1 or 2 farms. Around the other side of the map, we have these 2 farms providing all the tree saplings. We still have the guys working through the very, very last rims of the crater, knocking out the quartz and also the sand, and then technically the edge of the crater would be flat. But they've been at that for quite some time, making the quartz, converting it into crushed quartz, and then converting it into a bunch of sand before it runs off down this goat belt, there we go. Goat belt that wraps right the way around the edge of the map before it finally banks it down in a somewhat neat and tidy fashion. Into the crater. Okay, so into the crater. On this side, we have all the food. Okay, all the food pops down here, along with the medical, wraps around the front and feeds into the town. Speaking of into the town, we have biomass coming out, which has been backed up for quite some time. I know it's been backed up. I haven't done anything about it. I could have done something about it. I haven't done anything about it. We're just accepting that as long as biomass is backed up, your town actually puts out extra waste. So we can see our waste is 265. I think we're sick currently. I think we've got the flu. No, we just have lots of waste. Oh, it must have just backed up. No, I just unpaused housing. Yep, earlier in the episode, in the final episode, we added more people. But if I was to do storage, actually just whack it right there with that. And also transport U-shape. Probably helps if I build the bucket as well. There we go. Okay, and speed up the game for a second. So we can get on top of the biomass. Waste. And we can see it pop straight back down. Yeah, so 265 must be our peak output. Biomass, settlements here. Yeah, so we're outputting about 90. As long as we keep processing 90, we should be fine. I don't think we're processing 90. I think I'm a little bit shy on 90. In theory, we should process 108, but obviously you can't dump steam fast enough. It was one of those things that there were many fine-tuning things in this Let's Play that I could have done. I could have gone back and tweaked and fixed and stuff, but I wanted to keep what I could on camera. So, yes, town-wise, delete you. Go away. Town, we have, we have all the food coming in. As you can see, every single box of food is chocker to the top. Vegetables that we've caught back up on. We have also all the town services being, you know, your white goods plus your glass rocking chairs, of course, your medical 3, biomass out, trash out, poop out, clean water in. All that is put right along one side of the town. Right here we have poop processing. This should be able to process up to 320, 640 total output of wastewater, which is about 11,000 people, roughly. This is designed on a blueprint that's not quite released. It might be released. You might find it in Discord at this point. But I do have a blueprint that does food processing. Let's go with food processing, poop processing. Poop processing for about 11,000 people. And I think the final output is fertilizer 1 and clean water. It's actually water positive after it replaces all the water that you end up losing from the poop processing. It also processes trash. It's a wonderful little blueprint. You need to literally plug in 2 lots of seawater, 1 brine dump, and that's about it. And then it just runs itself. Anyway, over here we have trash processing, also a couple of desalinators to, of course, make clean water to supplement the clean water we're losing. Also a couple more desalinators to, burn off the steam, so to speak. The exhaust and other byproducts get sent over to, exhaust scrubbing, which is over there. On top of that, right here, we are converting biomass to compost, and then taking the compost output, turning it back around and putting it straight back into our mixer to then make fertilizer, which then goes into flower production to make sure the Tomb of Captains keeps well stocked with flowers and burning that fuel gas good. Okay, back into production. So over here we have a concrete build. This is my blueprint of concrete. Just a slight modification over on this side to upgrade it to crushers large, upgrade it to the large crushers, also upgrade them to the concrete mixer Mark IIs, along with the rotary kilns. The rotary kilns are going to be required to meet the input demands for the cement, for the concrete mixer too, but as you can see, you can fit in. It's almost the same footprint. There is a little bit of belt removal you need to do between the original blueprint and this one to get in the two large mixers, but it works a charm. Right here we have our iron smelters. Again, there's a whole bunch of upgradable blueprints over on my Discord server for every different type of smelter. So this one's for the iron. Over here we have the steel version. Over the other side of the map we obviously have the poly version, the copper version, and also the glass versions. And these are designed to deal with both the Glassmaker Mark II, also the Glassmaker Mark I. The little short guy, where are we? We're under this one. Rotary kiln, Glassmaker. Little short one. Yeah, the little short one. It's designed to deal with these guys as well. Make sure you have the right spacing so you can upgrade them to the Glassmaker Mark II in the future. All right, continuing back through the base, we have, of course, the Jewels of Maintenance. We've been studying these with the Great Research Lab Mark V for quite some time to make sure that the Jewels of Maintenance, which we're, as you can see, staring deeply into, are running efficiently. Yeah, it's very, very efficient that we make sure that the Jewels of Maintenance are studied. Shiny Jewels of Maintenance. These guys have been burning basically since we built them. It was very handy to put the Jewels of Maintenance down here, and it was very handy that I could thank those who watched the series, also liked the series, and also commented throughout the series. It very, very much helps me out, and means that I can run longer series like this particular one. So yes, this is our Science Mark I, Mark II, Mark III, and Mark IV. Again, I don't think there's a blueprint for this available, but you never know. You never know. I might end up uploading a blueprint for this particular build as well, because it does go in very, very tidy if you line up the belts. The only reason I don't think it was ever released prior to this is, well, it's not really designed to, you're going to have these belts come all the way out and then go in, then you have to remove them and rebuild them. I'm not a fan of having to remove and rebuild things. It's really what it comes down to. Over here, we have our microchip builds. These are blueprints that are available on my Discord server. These take in, your very first silicon wafers, turn them a 1A, then 1B, then 1C, and then 2A, B, C, and then 3A, B, C, and then 4A and 4B, and then finally the microchip output. So rather than being a long, skinny 12-long build, they're shorter 3 builds with the belts wrapping up between each layers. It's a more compact little build. Over here we have our gold recycling. We have our Electronics 3 builds. We have our Electronics 2 with the PCBs behind them. We have Electronics 1. We also have good old mechanical parts, and then construction parts 1, 2, 3, and 4. Normally don't think you need quite this much, but I was sort of in a rush to cram out all the construction part 4 that I needed to build a rocket solo in 5 years or less. Yeah. Over here we obviously have our input along with our storage. So we have storage for a whole lot of electronics, whole lot of Electronics 2. Electronics 3 was stored over there. We have plastic being made right here. We have rubber being made right here. And of course, copper, glass, and silicon over there. The only other thing that we have down inside the crater is, our scrubbing. We brought all the exhaust from, all the smelters and everything else that's inside the crater into 3 dedicated pipes, which I could run into, a whole bunch of dedicated scrubbers to clean things up, to then take all that CO2 and run it into a dedicated bunch of chem plants to make the graphite, and then took all this the low steam out of these guys, plus the low steam out of all the arc furnaces, and ran them either into desals if they were required, so we run them in desals to replenish our clean water. If they weren't needed there, they pop through this pipe into these low pressure turbines. And because we're using balancers for every single turbine, it just makes sure that the turbines that can run at full speed to make sure we don't have an efficiency loss. And then we have one normally, sometimes 2, that'll fluctuate up and down according to how much steam we actually have in the system. So you're now running full speed. You were running, not running, you've stopped running again, you're running, yeah. And it again creates some free power. You know, they're only running at 27% of max functionality, so 21%. It's 6 megawatts worth of free power from basically waste steam from smelting. Yeah. Then we have, well, one hell of a belt chain of spaghetti and everything that brings us up to the top of the crater. Top of the crater, we have my gold blueprint. This is a tileable blueprint. I only managed to put one inside this particular let's play because I didn't need any more than that. Because we started mining gold very, very early before we even got anywhere near actually using it. I've actually been chewing through gold for like the last 100 years. We've been going backward on gold, but that's all right. Nobody noticed. Nobody commented. It was fine. And yes, this is doing all our gold production. On top of that, we have our uranium reprocessing up here. So again, this is a scalable blueprint. So this goes down as uranium rods being the very first process. And then you have another blueprint you stamp on top of that, which adds in the blast furnace for the molten glass. Also right about here adds in the spent fuel reprocessing to make MOX fuel. And then you have a third blueprint that adds, well, basically this section on the front, which will then start outputting your core fuel. Well, you're turning your spent core fuel back into core fuel, turning your depleted uranium and salt into blanket fuel, turning your enriched blanket fuel back into blanket fuel and core fuel, and also over here adding, well, reprocessing the 4% enriched uranium into 20% enriched uranium, and then into this machine to make a whole bunch of core fuel to originally seed the system. These are slowly being emptied, roughly. No, it's not being emptied at all, because the truck can't get into here. Yeah, no truck can get into here. This is why this has never been emptied or filled. Yeah, I should probably get around to fixing that. It's all right. We don't have to worry about it. We come back to KE up here in this top corner. And then, of course, I have my first reactor. My first reactor that's told to run flat out and does its best to run flat out. And it is slowly refilling its water. Good, because I thought that might melt down before the episode, or before the series finished. We managed to scrape it in. This is pumping out super steam. We are running through the hydrogen reformers to make a whole bunch of hydrogen. The hydrogen we are combining with nitrogen from the air separators to make ammonia. The ammonia we're combining with oxygen, again from the air separators, to make fertilizer 1. And the fertilizer 1 goes into a very long pipe all the way around the map and back to food processing to, well, make fertilizer 2. Yeah, an awful lot of fertilizer too. And then, of course, I have my second reactor right here. Both these reactors feature all their pipes being buried on the ground because, well, I could. It does mean you have to be very, very careful when you swing around decon planer, but I could bury them, so I went and decided to bury them. And, of course, this is producing not power, actually. The super steam comes out here and runs into these generators. These are going to give me 30, 60, 120 megawatts worth of total power. We have run a fairly lean island. We haven't gone too heavy on the power, but they're actually, well, basically downgrading the steam from super steam down to high steam, so then I can run it through all these thermal desalinators to make a whole bunch of water. The water actually disappears into the giant rows and rows of farms, and we can see this tank's not full and this tank's not full. This is actually no longer producing enough water to keep everything up, well, all the farms up and running. We do have an awful large stockpile of depleted uranium, which you can hold on to forever and slowly burn off making blanket fuel for thousands of years in the future. By the same token, you can dump it in the sea. I didn't get around to dumping it in the sea. I didn't see a point to dumping it in the sea, but that is definitely an option. And that pretty much brings us to the end of the island. The island is, on a scale of difficulty, I would probably say this is the hardest island I've played on. I have played the beach personally. I did that back in the beta. I played, what's the first map called? Captain's Haven. Yeah, no, not Captain's Haven. I can't remember the name of the first map. I played that as well in the pre-alpha state, and in the alpha. So I played that very, very early on. The map has changed a little bit. New Haven. That's the name of the map. I have played New Haven very, very early on. It has changed a little bit, but I have played it. I've played the Golden Peak in the last series. Again, if you want to look at that, you'll find a link down in the description. Also, probably the pinned comment. And the Golden Peak was a very hard map. It's in my opinion, and others that have played both Golden Peak and You Shall Not Pass. The You Shall Not Pass is in theory the super hard map. A lot of people have said Golden Peak was harder than You Shall Not Pass. The crater puts everything else to shame. The fact that you have two choices, you can either build in the crater and try and clear out enough space to build everything, or you could try and keep everything multi-leveled, or you could just dig out the crater entirely and dump everything up on the edge and build your way out to sea. That works as well, but there's an awful lot of dumping required. And of course, when you start dumping close to the coastline, you can get a decent amount of extra area fairly quickly. But of course, the further you out, the more and more material you need to dump to extend anything out any further. Yeah. But overall, look, I'm very, very happy with the island. It was a bunch of fun to play. I thoroughly enjoyed playing on, well, the crater, and I can't wait to see what Update 2 has for us. Update 2, we have had some leaked info, like we can now build balances. Balances is no longer on the ground. We can build them up in the air as well on our wonderful stilts. But yeah, I'm wanting to see what else comes. Hopefully with the map editor, and we'll see what else happens. And I think in the future, I'm going to build more docks like this. I do like the double piers, which gives me a good amount of reach out to sea, and I can cram in the ships as close as possible. I can't do production between the two ship lines, but I don't really need production between the two ship lines. I just need enough room for, well, all the belts to get out, and also a bit of room for trucks to get in if I want to deliver stuff via trucks. Like the slag, I chose to deliver by trucks because it was quick and it was easy. But with all that said and done, I'm going to leave you guys here. I do hope you guys have enjoyed this, this tour. And also, if you watch the whole Let's Play, the Let's Play itself, by all means, if you want to have a look at my blueprints, they are, of course, on my Discord server. At the same time, I should mention that, yes, there is a link to the original Let's Play for this particular crater map. Also, there is the link to my previous Let's Play. Let's Play on the Golden Peak. If you want a little bit more of a slower pace through the game, it was technically less episodes, but there was a lot more of me trying to work out how the game worked at the time, because I hadn't played through the whole game, because that was when the game first came out. Anyway, with all that said and done, I do hope you guys have clicked subscribe by now, because we're going to be back for Update 2. I'm sure we're going to be back for Update 2. Anyway, all that said and done, as always, thank you guys so much for watching. Do hope you've enjoyed, and I'll see you back here for Update number 2. All right, that's it. I'm out. Bye.